In this demo, we'll use mock to mock our custom handler. Now, this isn't a course on using mock. For that, I gladly refer you to Jason Roberts' Mocking in .NET Core Unit Tests with Mock Getting Started course here at Pluralsight. But if you're familiar with mock, here's how we can leverage this library for our purposes. First of all, let's add a new unit test. We'll name it getMovie on 401 response must throw unauthorized API access exception with mock. Then we need to add mock to our unit test project. So let's open the NuGet dialog. What we want to search for is mock. There we go. Let's install it. Let's click OK and accept. And there we go. Now, what is it we want to mock? Well, we want to mock an HTTP message handler, so it returns a 401 unauthorized response. Like that, we don't have to create our own custom handlers for all test use cases. So we add a new mock of type HTTP message handler. But now we immediately run into an issue. We want to mock the result of the sendAsync method. Let's speak the definition for a moment. But that sendAsync method is a protected method, and mock can't automatically implement those. Luckily, there's a way around this. We can manually implement these through the .protected extension method. So, on unauthorized response HTTP message handler mock, we tap into protected. This is defined in the mock.protected namespace, so let's add a using statement by pressing enter. Then we want to set up the protected method to mock. For that, we call into .setup. As type parameter, we pass through the return type of the method to mock. So that's a task of HTTP response message. Task is defined in system.threading.tasks. The next parameter is the method name, sendAsync. And that is followed by the input parameters for this method, an HTTP request message and a cancellation token. Through itexpert.isAny, we specify that any object of type HTTP request message is sufficient for the first input parameter, and any object of type cancellation token is okay for the second input parameter. Lastly, we specify the actual object that's returned from the method. As it's an async method, we call into return async, and we instantiate the object to be returned. An HTTP response message with status code 401 unauthorized. HTTP status code is defined in system.net, so let's add a using statement for that. So that's our mocked handler. This is what we want to pass through when we initialize our HTTP client. To do that, we call .object on the unauthorized response HTTP message handler mock. With that, we have replaced our custom handler with a mock version of it. The rest of the method is a copy of what we already had. We instantiate the testable class and pass through our HTTP client. We new up a cancellation token source so we can pass the token through to the call into getMovie. And we assert .throws_async, and we check that that call will result in an unauthorized API access exception. Alright, let's give that a try. Let's open Test Explorer again. 2 tests have been discovered, so our new test is there as well. Let's click Run All. And let's have a look. Both tests work as expected. As you can see, this is quite a bit cleaner than writing custom handlers for each and every use case. And with that, it's time for the module summary. In this module, we learned how we can avoid calls to an API by creating a custom handler. That handler can return a preset response with or without content. Like that, we can unit test parts of classes and methods that would otherwise have to effectively call an API. One approach is to create a custom handler for each use case you want to test. We did that in the first demo and used that for the unit test afterwards. But that can become quite cumbersome after a while, because you tend to end up with a plethora of handlers. Therefore, using a mocking framework like mock is the better option. It allows us to create mocked versions of custom handlers on the fly. We did that in the last demo. And with that, this course is finished. I hope you learned something. And before I go, I have one more thing to say. You are ready to be awesome.